This module will look at continual service improvement. Continual service improvement is always seeking ways to improve service effectiveness, process effectiveness, and cost effectiveness. In order to identify improvement opportunities, the measurement of current performance is an important factor. Consider the following sayings about measurements and management. You cannot manage what you cannot control. You cannot control what you cannot measure. You cannot measure what you cannot define. The purpose of the continual service improvement stage of the life cycle is to align IT services with changing business needs by identifying and implementing improvements to IT services that support business processes. These improvement activities support the life cycle approach through service strategy, service design, service transition, and service operation. Depending upon the criticality of a specific IT service to the business, the organisation could lose productive hours, experience higher costs, suffer loss of reputation, or perhaps even risk business failure, potentially leading to loss of customer business. For these reasons, it is important to understand what to measure, why it is being measured, and what the successful outcome should be. As continual service improvement has a service-wide brief, the objectives cover the following: review, analyse, prioritise and make recommendations on improvement opportunities in each life cycle stage. Service strategy, service design, service transition, service operation, and continual service improvement itself. Review and analyse service level achievement. Identify and implement specific activities to improve IT service quality and improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the enabling processes. Improve cost effectiveness of delivering IT services without sacrificing customer satisfaction. Ensure applicable quality management methods are used to support continual improvement activities. Ensure that processes have clearly defined objectives and measurements that lead to actionable improvements. Understand what to measure, why it is being measured, and what the successful outcome should be. The scope of continual service improvement covers four main areas. Firstly, the overall health of IT service management as a discipline. Secondly, the continual alignment of the service portfolio with the current and future business needs. Thirdly, the maturity and capability of the organisation, management, processes and people utilised by the services. And finally, continual improvement of all aspects of the IT service and the service assets that support them. It is because of the last point that continual service improvement has a wide-ranging brief across the whole life cycle.
Before we delve into the continual service improvement stage of the service life cycle in more depth, we need to familiarise ourselves with some of the basic thinking that underpins this crucial life cycle stage. Part of the underpinning philosophy of continual service improvement is the Deming cycle. W. Edwards Deming is best known for his management philosophy leading to higher quality, increased productivity, and a more competitive position. As part of this philosophy, he formulated 14 points of attention for managers. Some of them are more appropriate to service management than others. For quality improvement, he proposed the Deming cycle or circle. This cycle is particularly applicable in CSI. The cycle has 4 key stages, and they are plan, where a clearly documented target state is captured and the steps intended to get there are mapped out. In this example, consider a service desk seeking to reduce the number of password reset calls it receives. It sets out various approaches to reducing the call volumes. One of the approaches may be to provide a password reset facility on the company intranet. Do is where the steps are carried out to execute the plan. In our example, the link to the password reset facility is given out to users. Check is where the effect of giving out the link is monitored and measured to determine the actual achievements against the plan. Act is where gaps are identified against the plan and opportunities for further improvement are identified. Once these steps are worked through, there follows a phase of consolidation which prevents the circle from rolling back down the hill. Our goal in using the Deming cycle, or the PDCA cycle as it is now more commonly known, is steady, ongoing improvement. It is the underpinning philosophy of continual service improvement.
Taking the Deming cycle a step further and applying it within service management requirements helps us to utilise the continual service improvement approach. The continual service improvement approach is made up of 5 core questions, each using the Deming cycle to influence the way it derives its answers. The first question to be asked is, what is the vision? This can only be achieved by understanding the high-level business objectives, the company's mission statement and long-term goals. The vision should align the business and IT strategies. Once the vision is understood, we can then plan based on our current understanding. The second question is, where are we now? We need to assess the current situation to obtain an accurate, unbiased snapshot of where the organisation is right now. This baseline assessment is an analysis of the current position in terms of the business, organisation, people, process and technology. It is imperative that the assessments are objective and ideally independent in nature. Having a clear vision and picture of where we are now, the next step is forwards. The third question is, where do we want to be? Understand and agree on the priorities for improvement based on a deeper development of the principles defined in the vision. The full vision may be years away, but this step provides specific goals and a manageable timeframe. The crucial factor here is to set targets that are achievable with the vision. The targets now need to be turned into reality. The fourth question is, how do we get there? To answer this effectively, a detailed continual service improvement plan will need to be formulated to focus on achieving higher quality service provision by implementing or improving the IT service management processes. With a clear direction and plan as to how we are looking to improve our service, the next step is to validate the achievements. The fifth question is, did we get there? Verify that measurements and metrics are in place and that the milestones were achieved, process compliance is high, and business objectives and priorities were met by the level of service. The Deming cycle emphasised the need for steady continual improvement. For that, we needed to check the outcomes of any improvement opportunities for their effectiveness, and if the results were acceptable, we acted. Finally, the approach should ensure that the momentum for quality improvement is maintained by assuring that changes become embedded in the organisation.
There are essentially 4 main reasons why we measure within a service. They are to justify. Monitoring and measuring helps to justify with factual evidence or proof that a course of action is required. To direct. Monitoring and measuring enables a provider to set the direction for activities in order to meet set targets. This is the most prevalent reason for monitoring and measuring. To intervene. Monitoring and measuring assist the provider to identify a point of intervention, including subsequent changes and corrective actions. To validate. Monitoring and measuring a service helps to validate previous decisions made in providing the service. Too often, we continue to measure long after the need has passed. Every time you produce a report, you should ask, do we still need this?
It is important to remember that there are 3 types of metrics that an organisation will need to collect that will support the activities of the continual service improvement lifecycle stage, as well as other service management process activities in other stages. These are process metrics, service metrics, and technology metrics. Metrics can be used effectively in 2 ways. Firstly, as critical success factors, or CSFs, and key performance indicators, or KPIs. A critical success factor is something that must happen if an IT service, process, plan, project or other activity is to succeed. Key performance indicators are used to measure the achievement of each critical success factor. For example, a critical success factor of protect IT services when making changes could be measured by key performance indicators such as percentage reduction of unsuccessful changes or percentage reduction in changes causing incidents. A key performance indicator is a metric that is used to help manage an IT service, process, plan, project or other activity. Key performance indicators are used to measure the achievement of critical success factors. Many metrics may be measured, but only the most important of these are defined as key performance indicators and used to actively manage and report on the process, IT service or activity. One simplistic way of looking at the two measures is to view a critical success factor as a target and a key performance indicator as the actual. There are two basic kinds of KPI which would be of use to a provider, namely qualitative and quantitative. A qualitative example may be built up as follows. The critical success factor or target is for improving IT service quality. The key performance indicator or target might be a 10% increase in customer satisfaction rating for handling incidents over the next 6 months. The way in which we measure this key performance indicator is to establish two states. The before picture, using the original customer satisfaction score for handling incidents, and the after picture, measured by the ending customer satisfaction score for handling incidents after 6 months. The measurements that will help are Incident Handling Survey Score, Number of Survey Scores. A quantitative example might include the following. The critical success factor is reducing IT costs. This may require a key performance indicator setting of a 10% reduction in the costs of handling printer incidents. We measure this by establishing the original cost of handling printer incidents and the final cost of handling printer incidents and the cost of the improvement effort. The metrics that may assist here are time spent on the incident by first-level operative and their average salary, time spent on the incident by second-level operative and their average salary, time spent on problem management activities by second-level operative and their average salary, time spent on the training first-level operative on the workaround, cost of a service call to third-party vendor, time and material from third-party vendor. It is worth remembering here that any targets that are set must be documented, accepted and recognised by all parties.
Within most organisations, the principle of logging issues, risks and actions will be commonplace. Most project managers will have issue logs or registers which are populated with concerns or issues that affect their projects. A similar principle of logging applies with continual service improvement. It is likely that several initiatives or possibilities for improvement are identified, and it is therefore recommended that a CSI register is kept to record all the improvement opportunities. Each one should be categorized into small, medium or large opportunities, as well as those that can be achieved quickly or in the medium term or longer term. Each improvement initiative should also show the benefits that will be achieved by its implementation. With this information, a clear prioritized list can be produced. The CSI register contains important information for the overall service provider and should be held and will be regarded as part of the Service Knowledge Management System or SKMS. The CSI register will introduce a structure and visibility to continual service improvement by ensuring that all initiatives are captured and recorded and benefits realized. The Continual Service Improvement Manager should have accountability and responsibility for the production and maintenance of the CSI register.
This brings us to the last of the processes within the ITIL service lifecycle, namely the 7-step improvement process. This process will bring together two key concepts we discussed earlier in the course, the DIKW, Data Information Knowledge Wisdom Model, and the Deming cycle and its PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act approach. The purpose of the 7-step improvement process is to define and manage the steps needed to identify, define, gather, process, analyse, present and implement improvements. In support of the process, the objectives of the 7-step improvement process are keenly aligned to identify opportunities for improving services, processes, tools, etc., reduce the cost of providing services and ensuring that IT services enable the required business outcomes to be achieved. A clear objective will be cost reduction, but this is not the only criterion. If service delivery or quality reduces as a result, the overall impact may be neutral or even negative. Identify what needs to be measured, analysed and reported to establish improvement opportunities. Continually review service achievements to ensure they remain matched to business requirements. Continually align and realign service provision with outcome requirements. Understand what to measure, why it is being measured, and carefully define the successful outcome. It is important to note that improvements in quality should not be implemented if there is a cost associated with the improvement and if this cost has not been justified. Every potential improvement opportunity will have to have a business case justification to show that the business will have an overall benefit. The scope of the 7-step improvement process includes analysis of the performance and capabilities of services, processes throughout the lifecycle, partners and technology. It includes continually aligning the portfolio of IT services with the current and future business needs. It also includes making best use of the technology that the organisation has and looks to exploit new technology as it becomes available. And the organisational structure, the capabilities of the personnel, and asking whether people are working in appropriate functions and roles and if they have the required skills. Before any further activity can be started, it is imperative that the overall vision is identified. What are we trying to achieve for the business as a whole? The questions we need to ask are: what initiatives does the business have that could be undermined by poor IT service provision? Or, more positively, how can improvements in IT enable the business vision to be achieved? The answers to these questions will come from stepping through the 7-step improvement process. One of the potential sources for a revisit would be one or more initiatives raised and documented in the CSI register. Step 2 is an iterative step. It is directly related to the strategic, tactical and operational goals that have been defined for measuring services and service management processes, as well as the existing technology and capability to support measuring and CSI activities. In this step, you need to define what you should measure and define what you can actually measure. Carry out an analysis to work out the metrics gap and then finalise the actual measurement plan. Gathering data requires having monitoring in place. Monitoring could be executed using technology such as application, system and component monitoring tools as used in the event management process, or even be a manual process for certain tasks. The accuracy and integrity of the data should always be maintained. When a new service is being designed or an existing one changed, this is a perfect opportunity to define and establish what continual service improvement needs to monitor and ensure that these metrics are designed into the service requirements. This step is to convert the data into the required format and for the required audience. Report-generating technologies are typically used at this stage, as various amounts of data are condensed into information for use in the analysis activity. The data is also typically put into a format that provides an end-to-end perspective on the overall performance of a service. The data is processed into information. Whilst much of the information gathered here will be via an automated route, it is essential that the accuracy of information is not compromised by the involvement of an individual who may not share the same passion for accuracy. Data analysis transforms the information into knowledge of the events that are affecting the organisation. More skill and experience is required to perform data analysis than data gathering and processing. Verification against goals and objectives is expected during this activity. This verification validates that objectives are being supported and value is being added. It is not sufficient to simply produce graphs of various types, but to document the observations and conclusions. It is also worth considering the skills required to analyse information, which will need to consider both a technical viewpoint and an interpretation viewpoint. The sixth step is to take our knowledge, which is represented in the reports, monitors, action plans, reviews, evaluations and opportunities, and present it to the target audience in a clear, digestible and timely way. This stage involves presenting the information in a format that is understandable at the right level, provides value, notes exceptions to service, identifies benefits that were revealed during the time period, and allows those receiving the information to make strategic, tactical and operational decisions. In other words, present the information in the manner that makes it the most useful for the target audience. It is an ongoing activity of monitoring and gathering data, processing the data into logical groupings, and analysing it in order to meet targets and identify trends and improvement opportunities. This stage may include any number of activities, such as approval of improvement activities, prioritisation and submitting a business case, integration with change management, integration with other lifecycle stages, and guidance on how to manage an ongoing improvement project successfully and on checking whether the improvement actually achieved its objective. Continual service improvement identifies many opportunities for improvement, but organisations cannot afford to implement all of them and will therefore need to prioritise its improvement activities. This prioritisation can be based on its goals, objectives, return on investment, types of service breaches, etc., and document them in the CSI register. After a decision to improve a service and/or service management process is made, then the service lifecycle continues. A new service strategy may be defined. Service design builds the changes. Service transition implements those changes into production. And then service operation manages the day-to-day operations of the changed service and/or service management processes.
Over the years, there have been business failures which, when analysed, point to a catastrophic lack of transparency and accountability in how those organisations behaved. One only needs to think of the aftermath of failures such as Enron and MCI WorldCom for this point to be clearly made. What is needed to add fairness, transparency and accountability to the way businesses behave and operate is governance. Governance is described as ensuring that policies and strategies are actually implemented and that required processes are correctly followed. To achieve this, roles and responsibilities need to be defined, measured and reported, and actions taken to resolve any issues identified. Governance is the single overarching area that ties IT and the business together, and services are one way of ensuring that the organisation is able to execute that governance. Governance is what defines the common directions, policies and rules that both the business and IT use to conduct business. IT governance is only part of an organisation's corporate governance, but it is an important part. Governance is important for all organisations and will provide an environment within which continual service improvement can operate and thrive. With the exposure of high-level corporate fraud in the early years of this century, IT was forced to comply with new legislation and an ever-increasing number of external regulations. External auditors are now commonplace in large IT organizations. These increasing pressures fit perfectly with the basic premise of ITIL. IT is a service business. Existing internal IT organizations must transform themselves into effective and efficient IT service providers, or they will cease to be relevant to the business and, soon after, cease to exist. This continual and unceasing drive toward greater business value with greater internal efficiency is at the heart of continual service improvement.
Selecting and adopting the best practice as recommended in continual service improvement stage of the life cycle will assist organizations in delivering significant benefits. It will help to set up continual service improvement and the process that supports it, and to make effective use of the process to facilitate the effective improvement of service quality. Adopting and implementing standard and consistent approaches for continual service improvement will lead to a gradual and continual improvement in service quality where justified, ensure that IT services remain continuously aligned to business requirements, result in gradual improvements in cost effectiveness through a reduction in costs and/or the capability to handle more work at the same cost. Use monitoring and reporting to identify opportunities for improvement in all life cycle stages and in all processes. Identify opportunities for improvements in organizational structures, resourcing capabilities, partners, technology, staff skills and training, and communications. This completes the lessons within this module. You should take the opportunity to reflect back against the module objectives. Consider whether these objectives have been met and whether you need to review any of the lessons. When you are comfortable with having completed the module learning, you can progress to the next module.